Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're here today because we are about to completely reframe something you probably experience every single day. We're going to be looking at some absolutely fascinating research from Dr. Mei Rui, who is both a classical pianist and a Yale-educated molecular biophysicist. And as you'll see, it turns out music is way more than just aesthetic entertainment. It's actually a profound, side effect-free biological intervention. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the first and last sense, then prescribing music as medicine. Next, we'll talk about rewiring the brain, and finally, building intentional playlists. All right, kicking things off with section 1, the first and last sense, sound as a biological constant.
So think about this for a second. Your auditory system is almost fully developed while you're still in the womb, right around the third trimester, which, is exactly why expectant mothers naturally want to play music for their babies. But it goes so much deeper than that. Hearing is literally the very first sense to wake up in the morning, and it's the last one to go to sleep at night. And even more profound, in palliative care, or even when someone is under heavy general anesthesia, hearing is universally recognized as the absolute final sense to perish. It's our most permanent, resilient connection to the outside world.
Now, to understand how music actually interacts with that deep biological connection, we've got to look at something called heart rate variability, or HRV. Basically, this is the variance in the tiny milliseconds of time between your heartbeats. The higher that variance is, the more flexible, resilient, and healthy your biological system is. And here's why this matters for us today. Human-played music contains these subtle, natural variations in rhythm, a concept known as rubato. AI-generated music or rigid computer MIDI files, they just don't have this. It turns out that natural flexibility in acoustic music directly communicates with and manipulates our body's HRV, completely easing our stress response.
Moving right along to section 2, prescribing music as medicine, hard clinical data. Look, on one hand, we have traditional FDA-approved pharmaceuticals that we use for pain and stress regulation in hospitals. We've all seen the commercials, right? They can carry some pretty devastating side effects, everything from blindness to brain bleeds to cardiovascular instability. But on the other hand, we have music. It literally acts as a natural narcotic. It's incredibly easy to implement, and the best part, it has absolutely zero known physical side effects. But the real question is, does it actually work?
Oh, it definitely does. Get this, because this number is just staggering. In a clinical trial involving 132 patients who were quite literally waiting to undergo open brain surgery, researchers took blood draws before and after playing a specific, curated classical playlist. They recorded a massive 32% reduction in serum cortisol levels. Cortisol is your body's primary stress hormone. A 32% drop is effectively more powerful than many standard pharmaceutical interventions, and they did the whole thing simply by manipulating the acoustic environment. No pills, just sound.
But wait, it doesn't just take away the bad stuff, it brings in the good too. Simultaneously, those exact same blood tests revealed a 28% increase in oxytocin. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. It's the stuff your brain releases when you feel safe, loved, and comforted. So right before undergoing one of the most terrifying medical procedures imaginable, the patient's brain is actively replacing sheer panic with profound feelings of comfort, purely because of the music.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is exactly how different kinds of sounds act as entirely different medicines. For instance, a minor third interval in music mathematically mimics a human sigh, which makes it perfect for matching and comforting a depressed state. Or take the cello or a lower piano register. Those frequencies naturally align with a mother's soothing voice. On the flip side, high-tempo hip-hop triggers your occipital lobe, the visual hunting center left over from our hunter-gatherer days, and that can actually raise your oxygen levels by up to 7%. And nature sounds? They gently push your brain into its default network, clearing out the mental traffic so you can have those wonderful, open-minded epiphanies.
All of this amazing acoustic processing is managed by something called the salience network. Think of this as your brain's neurological traffic cop. It analyzes the acoustic data coming in and decides exactly where to send your body's resources. Imagine a surgeon who prefers to play intense, 160 beat per minute death metal or hip-hop in the operating room. Well, the salience network of the unconscious patient still registers that noise. It can literally send an anesthetized patient into a full fight-or-flight response, causing cardiovascular instability and forcing the anesthesiologist to pump in even more sedatives. The sound environment absolutely matters, even when you are knocked out cold. Let's shift gears to section 3, rewiring the brain. Structural and functional magic. Did you know that engaging deeply with music is the only human endeavor that physically alters the shape of the brain so drastically that a medical examiner can identify it in an autopsy? It's true. Because a pianist uses both hands with relatively equal demand, their brain becomes highly structurally symmetric. But a violinist, because their complex bowing technique demands so much intense focus from just one arm, their brain ends up highly asymmetric. In fact, the right motor hemisphere of a violinist can possess up to 30% more gray matter. Music literally sculpts our neurobiology. And that sculpting, it acts like a neurological armor. Longitudinal studies on twins have shown that engaging in instrumental music training provides a massive 64% protective effect against neurodegeneration, Alzheimer's, and dementia decades later in life. Let that sink in. There's virtually no other known cognitive activity that offers that level of defense against aging. None.
And the reason this happens is because music demands absolutely everything from the brain, elevating what scientists call global brain efficiency. This is simply the speed and coordination of oxygenated blood flow connecting entirely separate regions of the brain. Memory, communication, emotion, fine motor skills. Music basically forces all these different departments to talk to each other simultaneously. It's like a giant lightning-fast network upgrade for your head.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. You don't even have to play an instrument to get a massive benefit. Simply engaging in mindful listening, actually giving a piece of music your full, undivided attention, can boost your global brain efficiency by 175% within just a few minutes. It turns your brain into a hyper-connected symphony of oxygenated blood flow. How cool is that?
And when multiple brains experience this hyper-efficiency together, something truly magical happens. The neural and cardiovascular rhythms of complete strangers sitting in an audience or a team of surgeons in an operating room will literally synchronize within minutes of shared music exposure. It activates these deep, deep empathy centers in the brain. It creates what researchers call experiential fusion. That's a flow state where your self-consciousness just completely melts away, and it instantly bridges gaps across completely different cultural and socioeconomic backgrounds. For a brief moment, we biologically become one.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, Building Intentional Playlists, Your Acoustic Environment. First up, we need to understand the dopamine formula. Why do certain songs actually give us the chills? Well, it's basically a precise mathematical equation. Your brain desperately craves the comfort of a recognizable structure or a returning theme, but it also wants to be teased just a little bit. When a piece of music provides that comforting familiarity, but then throws in a subtle, unpredictable variation, like a wildly unique classical cadenza, it triggers massive dopamine surges. Over time, as you build a relationship with a really complex piece of music, your sensitivity to it actually increases, giving you a stronger dopamine hit than even your favorite food. So we need to stop passively consuming sound and start intentionally curating it. Here are some highly actionable tips pulled straight from clinical settings. First, curate your morning and bedtime playlists to actually match your circadian rhythms. Start with activating sounds, end with soothing ones. Second, avoid tracks with lyrics during your deep work sessions. Your brain tries to process the language, which taxes your cognitive load and totally ruins your flow state. Third, steer clear of emotionally triggering or highly nostalgic tracks if your primary goal is pure focus. And finally, match the instrument to the goal. Need to relax? Put on some cello. Need an energy boost? Hit those high-tempo rhythmic beats. It's honestly wild how modern molecular biophysics is just now catching up to what musicians have known for centuries. Just look at this quote from the legendary composer J.S. Bach. "The aim and final end of all music should be none other than the glory of God and the refreshment of the soul." Ancient wisdom aligning perfectly with modern brain scans. Music is, and honestly always has been, profound medicine for the human condition. So I want to leave you with this provocative question today. What is your acoustic environment doing to your brain right now? Are you leaving your neural traffic cop to just deal with a chaotic, uncurated world? Or are you going to start harnessing this natural, side-effect-free narcotic starting today? Curate your soundscape, rewire your brain, and just see how much your focus, empathy, and resilience can grow. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I'll see you next time.